So often we take for granted the people in our lives. Friends come and go, and we take time to visit relatives during the holidays, but how well do we know the people in our lives? My grandfather, Charles Wiatt, who went by the nickname Babe, was an important figure in my life during my formative years. I did not really know him until I spent his last summer living with him. It was a symbiotic relationship. I needed to save money to finish my college education, and his emphysema had rendered him in need of a live-in helper. What did I really know about Babe prior to May 1st, 2000? I knew he was an excellent fisherman from the instruction he had given me as a boy. I knew he fought in the Pacific Theater of World War II, and that he had owned a motorcycle during the 2 decades following the war. I knew my grandmother had left him in the years prior to my birth, and that he had never remarried. I remember our first meal together. I grilled hamburgers and he told me they were delicious, but next time leave them a little pink in the middle. I was dumbfounded. What about the possibility of E. coli? I asked him. You can't live your life in fear, he responded. I came to find that to be his philosophy. He did not marry my grandmother until he was well into his 30s. Instead, he earned his pilot's license after the war and even practiced skydiving. I knew of his old motorcycle, and I had purchased my motorcycle the summer before. Motorcycling would become a catalyst for our deepening relationship. Several times that summer, he would reminisce about the trips he and my grandmother had taken in the 1950s. There was the trip to Michigan in which they crossed Lake Michigan at night aboard the ferry, and the trip out west to Yellowstone National Park, which prompted him to pull out pictures of the pearl white 1952 Harley-Davidson. Slowly I was learning to appreciate my youth and gain a solemn realization that my size and strength would one day wither too. Later during that same day, I found my grandfather holding a flashlight over those pictures and realized he would never be able to experience the joy of those trips firsthand again. Other aspects of his life became all too real for me as well. We would often watch the History Channel together, and he would always recollect what he was doing contemporarily during the topics of the many programs. However, on one occasion, the program poured pictures of the Japanese dead lying on a beach in the Pacific during the Second World War. He was quiet and commented, "There is nothing worse than the smell of dead bodies," and abruptly turned the channel. That was the closest he ever came to telling me any real stories about the war. I knew enough at that point to know it was something I never wanted to experience. One experience we both did share, however, was heartbreak. Prior to the summer I lived with him, I had gone through a bad breakup of a 4-year relationship. My grandmother had left years before, and my grandfather had never remarried. He only talked about the divorce a handful of times. He told me that he had wasted so much time being angry, but it all turned out for the best. Truth be told, I think he never stopped loving her. Although he rarely mentioned the divorce, he spoke often of my grandmother. In this regard, my greatest fear was to become like him, so lonely and sick that he could not take care of himself anymore. It was a lesson through observation. I had watched him many times that summer in his boxer shorts staring at the world outside his big picture window. I knew I had to deal with the emotional aftermath in my own life, or I might be the one lonely looking out the window someday. Babe succumbed to his emphysema on November 12, 2000. I will never forget the lessons he indirectly taught me about life that summer.